The Real Monica Adams Show is brought to you by Kaufman Outdoors and The Porch in Wildwood.
Well, good Monday morning and welcome in to the Porch Wildwood and our Kaufman Outdoor Studios. Thrilled to have you with us on this Monday. How was your weekend? Let me know what you did. You got out there, enjoy the weather. It was actually pretty nice. We had a nice pool party on Saturday with a lot of my clients. Try to do that once a year just to thank them for being incredible human beings. And thank you for tuning in each and every morning. If you're new to the show, welcome aboard. If you're a diehard, thank you so much for the 3.5 years that we have been together. Today is a Medical Monday and we are going to do a continuation with a physician out of Michigan, Heritage Hand Surgery. Dr. James Clarkson is our guest. And if you didn't get a chance to see our first interview, you can go back to YouTube and make sure you subscribe. Click that subscribe button so you can go to our library of shows and see the continuation of our interviews with Dr. Clarkson. So we mentioned last time, have you ever heard of Wide Awake Local Anesthesia No Tourniquet? Well, LUNT. That is what that stands for. We're going to go more in depth today of that using the VR goggles during the surgery and then eliminating the middleman when it comes to a cost standpoint. We're going to go deeper into that today with you as well. Before we get to that, we're going to give you the weather, some news you can use, some sports. Did you go to the BMW Championship? Boy, it was packed, and what a gorgeous day for the wrap-up yesterday. We'll talk about all of that coming up in just a second. Let's kick things off with the weather in a segment we call What the Weather.
Good evening and welcome into this new More Weather Forecast video. My name is Beck Moore.
Brought to you by our friends at Fenton Family Dentistry. And yes, I will be following up with Dr. Jessica and Abram as I finally got fitted for my guards at night. And I feel so much better. They actually asked me just a day after using them, did it work, Monica? How's it feeling? Yes, I'm not grinding my teeth anymore. And if I am, it's not on my teeth. So thank you, Dr. Jessica, for taking care of me. I've been in. This is the beautiful office. And sometimes you'll actually see some of our shows airing right there on the TV. Oh, okay, we can't forget about Augie, the director of Smiles. Beckett has been in. I have been in. What about you? If you haven't yet, Fenton Family Dentistry, located, of course, in Fenton, Missouri, on Old Smizer Mill Road. There's the exact address for you. You can go to 552 Old Smizer Mill Road. Check them out online as well at FentonFamilyDentistry.com. All right, my friend. Good morning, Beckett. How are you this morning?
I'm good. How was your weekend?
It was good, and I missed you on Friday. So sorry. We had a fun little get-together that I did doing some Pilates, and it was during the 7 a.m. hour. I'm like, all right, I'm going to say yes to a friend and take a mental health break.
Yes.
But how was your first week of school?
It was pretty good, getting back into the swing of things, but overall it went pretty smoothly and ready for the second week.
Are you excited to be back?
I wouldn't say I'm excited, but I'd say getting back into the routine is pretty nice.
That's a good point. So most of your kids should be back in school, I would think, already. If not, it's like today or definitely by this week. So we're going to start doing that school bus forecast and how it looks as the kids are heading out. Looks like a pretty nice one this week.
Yeah, it actually is going to be pretty nice, mostly in the 80s, near 90 some days, but sunny and not much rain.
All right, well, we're going to get the breakdown of that, and then we actually are going to continue about the weather, some of the southern states and what they're going to be experiencing from a heat standpoint. But what about here? Let's find out with Beckett.
Yeah, so looking at the current conditions right now, it's actually a little bit chilly out there this morning. Temperature around 60 degrees, partly cloudy skies. Our dew point not too high at 58. As we head into this afternoon, 83 degrees is going to be our high. That is several actually degrees below average for this time of the year. Mostly sunny skies, so very, very nice day. Today, our low tonight, 65. Tomorrow, another nice day, 86, sunny skies. By Wednesday, warming up to 88. Slight chance of some afternoon and overnight showers. Thursday, 86. And then as we head towards Friday, towards the weekend, we do start to gradually warm up back towards the 90s, 93 by Sunday, and mostly cloudy skies on Saturday and Sunday. But overall, looking at like a very nice forecast this week. Again, staying in the 80s for most days and mostly sunny skies.
I got to tell you something. I mean, it's weird to be looking at this and going, yeah, summer. And then I heard a commercial this morning saying, it's not too early to be thinking about Christmas. And I'm like, Christmas? I was like, oh, it is only 3 months away.
Yeah, I mean, time flies. It'll be here before we know it.
Well, you look fantastic. And I think we all look a little bit more intelligent when we put glasses on. So let me put mine on too. Beckett, thank you. Have a beautiful day at school.
Thank you. See you on Friday.
All right, folks, that's Beckett Moore. He has been with us for over 2 years now. Your aspiring meteorologist, giving you the weather in our immediate area, which, by the way, if you don't know, we're in St. Louis, Missouri, and then into southern Illinois. But I love the fact that more of you are telling your friends and family, and they're watching in other states as well as other countries, which is pretty amazing. So we always love to know where you're watching from. Now, those of you that are in St. Louis, when I was driving in, I heard that 55 was shut down. So I wanted to give you some traffic information. Hopefully by now it is back open, but this was the reason why. A pedestrian killed in a morning crash northbound on 55 in the South St. Louis area. The city police department said it occurred in the northbound lanes near Arsenal about 5:10 this morning. Police called investigators with the department's accident reconstruction team, and sometimes, of course, that takes hours. The northbound lanes were closed as of when I was coming in. I'd say it was about 6 or so. So you might want to check your Waze app or whatever you use to, keep updated on traffic to make sure you don't need to reroute with regards to that accident. And then this one, a 67-year-old motorcyclist killed in a rear-end crash near DeSoto, Missouri. Pretty tragic. It happened in the afternoon yesterday. And according to the Missouri State Highway Patrol, they said at 2:24 in the afternoon on Yellow Brick Road, this woman was heading northbound on the highway, in a three-wheeled motorcycle, and then a mid-sized car driven by a 28-year-old man was behind her, following way too close to the motorcycle, rear-ended it, according to the report. The crash ejected the woman from the bike. Paramedics transported her to the hospital. She was pronounced dead, unfortunately, an hour and a half later. The report said that the man suffered moderate injuries. And I will just say, as the wife of a lieutenant, he constantly says, always have a reactionary gap. And unfortunately, this one turned very tragic. So thoughts and prayers going out to the family who lost that woman. Well, we were just talking about the weather here in our area. Looking really pretty, but if you live in some southern states, they're talking about temperatures around 110, 118 I saw as well. And this is creating a problem. Look at nearly 90,000 have been told to evacuate as wildfires approach the Reno, Nevada area. About 42,000 people have been ordered to leave their homes immediately. A further 45,000 people urged to get ready to leave. The fire was first reported Saturday morning, and it had injured 6 people at that point. Windy, unpredictable weather conditions contributing to that spread. So we will continue to bring you more information on that throughout the week. Here locally, 25 animals have been rescued after animal cruelty investigation continues in Granite City, and now they're asking for every shelter in the area to try to help out. But as we know, many times they are at full capacity. Police say they actually conducted a search warrant Tuesday for a residence where a total of 23 dogs and 2 cats were found in the residence, placed in protective custody. The Granite City Police Department announced yesterday that 25 animals are now under the care of their animal control after this investigation. Again, any help in the area with shelters, that is what they're looking for right now, or if people can foster. I do know a person's been taken into custody. Charges are pending. Police said that the Granite City Animal Control's facility is at capacity. Again, any rescues, fosters, shelters that can help, they can contact the facility's director, 618-452-6233. Again, if you can help in any way. We're going to stay with dogs in our stories. This time it has to do with the food. Look very closely at the food you're feeding them. There are thousands of canned food under recall over possible metal contamination. Almost 4,000 cases, actually, from Turkey Pate, the wet canned dog food. Almost 2,000 cases of Diner Classics Milo's Meatloaf wet were also placed under the recall. That was announced back on August 21st. The affected turkey flavor was sold in 12-ounce cans. The meatloaf, also, both products have a best buy date of March 20th of 29. They were sold in stores all over the U.S. and in Canada. Here's the good news. No illnesses have been reported. You can return the cans to the retailer or stop feeding the dogs immediately if you do have those. All right, this was a very interesting scene, and this video went viral as people were at the St. Louis Zoo, and they see this man, and he says that he works at the zoo, and quickly in the video you can hear the girl saying, I don't think that he did. He climbed up over the fence in big cat country. Yeah, at the St. Louis Zoo. You know that's a scary situation when people are watching this happen on Saturday. So we're talking about, again, the big cat country. You know how scary that could be. It's beautiful to watch from the outside of the fence, but this guy literally climbed in and then nonchalantly climbed right over the fence and returned back into the zoo where everybody else was. Zoo officials obviously asked that no one try to do that. I'm glad that guy wasn't injured, but that is the most foolish thing to do. And I don't know if he was, again, with a friend on TikTok trying to get somebody to say, look, I'm going viral. That could have gone so wrong in so many ways. All right, you'll know this woman for so many reasons. Shelley Fabares, what an incredible actress. Unfortunately, passing away. She was 82. You remember her from the Donna Reed show or maybe Coach? To her family and friends, Shelley was a source of love, strength, laughter, and comfort. That's what her family wrote. She had a remarkable ability to make people feel welcomed and valued and cared for. She died Saturday in Los Angeles. Right now, no cause was given. Well, folks, we've been talking about this for about 3 years now. GLP-1s and a triple receptor coming out in January, injections as well as pills. And in the beginning, it was from a diabetic standpoint, as well as people looking to lose weight. Now it's interesting how many researchers are finding new benefits, as well as risks, though, in the GLP-1 weight loss drugs. Beyond weight loss, there are people who say that they have improved symptoms, less pain, less inflammation, they can walk better. There are studies also where they're saying that it reduced the risk of heart attacks, cardiovascular disease, mortality. And they're saying not all benefits, though, are tied directly to weight loss. These drugs actually have themselves some properties that improve inflammation, according to some physicians. Now, they say patients on GLP-1 drugs do not eat adequately and have developed vitamin deficiencies not usually seen, including scurvy from vitamin C deficiency, because of the way the drugs affect the eating habits. They also, some physicians said that their patients lose the enjoyment of eating altogether and a lack of interest in eating, which is not a good thing. I just mentioned some new drug in the trials, retatrutide, a triple agonist drug combining GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon. He said the drug has produced the most weight loss seen so far in this class of drugs, in the range of 25 to 30%. More and more coming out, and we've got a lot of stories coming up for you in the coming months with some physicians and regenerative medicine folks that will be on the show in our Medical Mondays to come. So stay tuned for that. All right. I asked you in the comment section, what did you do this weekend? Did you go to the BMW championships from last week into yesterday, where the entire wrap-up was? Here is your winner, folks. The 2026 BMW championship winner, Wyndham Clark. He finished strong with 3 consecutive birdies on the final holes to secure a 3-stroke victory. He shot an even par 70 in the final round to post a 17 under 263 total. He held off a back 9 charge from Rory McIlroy and ultimately won by 3 shots over Patrick Cantlay, who finished in second place. And actually, he earned a $3.6 million payout. The purse, though, was $20 million, but he also collected 750 FedEx Cup points. It was beautiful weather for it, and I have a ton of friends that had a chance to go to it. I hope you had an opportunity, and maybe you were there at the end to watch it all finish. Here's what I love about that. You know, there were people that were around, drinks and food galore. This is what they do with the leftover food from the BMW Championship. It goes to a St. Louis homeless shelter. I'm so glad to know that it is not going to waste. Gateway 180, by the way, was chosen to receive that surplus food. All right, in sports news, St. Louis Cardinals in action for you. Tomorrow afternoon, they'll be playing against the Orioles. They are coming off of their game yesterday where they played the Phillies, and that final in that game was 6-4. The Phillies beat the Cardinals 6-4. So again, they will be in action now, playing against the Orioles, and then they have a game on Wednesday at 6:45 as well. They continue that until Friday when they come back home, and they will be playing against the Pirates. National Day of Calendar, and we've got a global one as well for you. If you want to go out to breakfast, maybe today you want to grab a waffle. It's National Waffle Day. It is National Peach Pie Day. My husband is going to be thrilled. Those top 2 things are some of his favorites. National Maryland Day. It is National Self First Day. You know, I love that. And then in the global observances, it is International Strange Music Day. What would you consider to be strange music? You know, parents probably think their kids' music is strange, but remember, you were a kid once as well, and your parents probably thought that your music was strange as well. Well, good morning to all of you. Let's see. Linda says she went to St. Charles Festival of the Little Hills. Oh, that sounded awesome. That was Saturday. Lots to see, lots of people to see. Hi, Latanya. Good morning to you and friends. Stephanie, your allergies bugged you? Okay, allergies hitting hard. My dog sneezed about 15 times in a row. Yes, I'm happy that I don't have those, but the dogs and you feeling it, huh? Anyone feeling the discomfort? Evidently. Had a busy weekend, pushed through it. Good morning, Babs. Went to my niece's wedding in Dayton, Ohio. Thanks for taking us along there. Sean, good morning to all of you that are signing on wherever you're watching from. As I mentioned, if you are new to the show, we have multiple platforms that we're on. Watch whichever one you're on, but also tell your family and friends in case they're not on social media to go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you can see us no matter where you are. And if you're not a person who loves to be on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, etc., you can watch us on YouTube at The Real Monica Adams, or go to our website, therealmonicaadams.com. All right, as I mentioned, our guest was on with us just a couple of weeks ago. We are going to continue into what we were discussing then. He is a physician out of Michigan, Heritage Hand Surgery. Dr. James Clarkson, our guest on this Medical Monday when we return. Special thanks to all of our sponsors, and that list, by the way, keeps growing. Defiance Ridge Vineyards, Dot Fleshman Realty, Garden View Care Centers, Exist Stretch, Fenton Family Dentistry, Spas and More, JG Optimal Wellness, Childress Legal Nurse Consulting, The Porch in Wildwood, Kaufman Outdoors, Dr. James Clarkson, R.A. Ginner Plumbing, The E-Step Law Firm, Ara House, the Ara Scent Diffuser. And your name can be on this list. Just reach out to me at info@therealmonicaadams.com. Welcome back on this Medical Monday, as you can see, brought to you today by our friends at Heritage Hand Surgery, Dr. James Clarkson. Let's bring him back on the show. Good morning, my friend.
Hi, good morning, Monica.
How are you?
I'm good. Yes, I just had a good weekend running about up north. So exercised this weekend and ready back to work on a Monday morning.
And where's up north?
Up north for me is in Michigan. We think of anything up north as north of Clare, which, if anyone knows Michigan, is kind of in the middle of the state. And anything north of there is kind of trees and rivers and wilderness. And anything south of there tends to be farm fields, and it's more like the rest of Indiana and Ohio.
Well, one of the things I love, you always want to go to a physician that walks the walk and talks the talk and knows all about self-care. National Self-Care Day today. You're very active, and we showed that just a couple of weeks ago. If you can name the number one thing that you love to do for activity, what would it be?
Oh, it's cycling. Yes, if I can get onto my mountain bike and take the flow trails in Michigan, that's what I do.
I love that. And you also are a big hiker, which we saw last time as
Yes,
well. Did you get the whole family involved?
The family loves to cycle and to hike, except for one. My youngest child will do neither.
Well, we know one of your kids is big in social media. We mentioned that last time. He's a big influencer. Is that the one?
That is the one, yes. He
He likes
strikes his
to
own path. He strikes his own
He's
path.
like, I'm not doing what Dad's doing.
That's correct. Yeah, certainly not.
Well, if you don't know Dr. Clarkson, he was on with us a couple of weeks ago. You'll be seeing him a lot on our show. Heritage Hand Surgery, Heritage Hand and Plastic Surgery is where you can find them, heritagehandsurgery.com. Also follow on social media. So we're going to give a little background first for those of you that didn't get a chance to see him last time. We talked about wide awake surgery, Dr. Clarkson. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more and how you came to say, this is the way I want to go?
Yeah. Well, so I mean, we make everything very complicated in American healthcare, and as you can tell from my accent, it was a bit jarring when I got to when I got to the States 20 years ago, and everyone was being put to sleep for almost everything. And it took me a few years to realize that I could change that by offering patients surgery in the office setting rather than taking them into a hospital where the industrial processes all exist. And that's really where I started in 2016, having really watched the system for about 5 or 6 years over here. And I started to offer patients surgery in the office. But in order to help persuade them, I needed to give them something to reassure them that they weren't going to have to watch their own surgery. So I introduced the use of virtual reality, which really has helped, actually. It really helps to convert a lot of my more doubtful patients. And in fact, my most nervous patients, I've measured the numbers. My most nervous patients not only have had less anxiety, but they actually report higher fun scores, higher enjoyment than my less nervous patients.
So
This
these
is
patients, again, it's local anesthesia, no tourniquet. So it's Willant, by the way, wide awake, local anesthesia, no tourniquet. So when
correct.
they're done, and some of these patients, I'm sure, have never even had VR goggles on. I mean, some of us have fun with those, right? They wouldn't think they'd be wearing it during surgery. What's their comment afterwards?
Well, a lot of them would. I mean, the nicest ones, and to be honest with you, the majority of them, I had no idea it could be this much fun. And that, to my mind, that is the antidote to anxiety is enjoyment and humor. So I get to watch the show with them, and it's actually a little bit of a con job because, of course, I've seen the shows 100 times, so I know all the punchlines. So it's always a bit of fun to watch the show together.
What do you think is the number one thing that they choose? Because there's a lot of options that they can choose from of what they'll watch while you're doing the surgery. What is the theme of the overall that they choose?
Well, perhaps it reflects my love for nature, but I've got a lot of musical nature videos, so things like flying over Victoria Falls or exploring remote parts of Russia. Yeah, I picked media that no one would have seen before. It's not mainstream on YouTube being shown on the National Geographic Channel, whatever. It's all kind of niche, different. And the biggest aspect of the experiences is that they absorb you. They draw you in. It's about engagement. It's not about relaxation. Relaxation comes because you're engaged, not because somebody is telling you to breathe deeply on a beach.
Right, exactly. Again, folks, if you're just tuning in and you have not seen our guest over the last couple of weeks, this is Dr. James Clarkson with Heritage Hand Surgery in Michigan. Now, what he's doing there, leading with other physicians, other people in the medical field that are watching what he's doing and then looking to implement that in their own clinics. Last time, and I want to pick up where we were a couple of weeks ago, we started to get into a cost factor. And when they go to your website, heritagehandsurgery.com, they can actually type in who their insurance provider is and what that surgery would cost if they went to the hospital or an urgent clinic or into your office. Can you break that down for us? Because we're looking at that and thinking, well, why would it cost this here? And then Dr. Clarkson saying I could do it in his office, the exact same surgery, and a vast difference in what that cost factor is.
There's a mismatch between how we think medicine is run and how medicine actually is run. I mean, let's be clear. I actually have a long family history of medicine, and I can look right back into the 19th century. That's the 1800s, where doctors and nurses would get together and actually design how a hospital would work. I've got letters from Florence Nightingale to a great grandfather of mine trying to work out how to make hospitals. So there was a time when surgeons could and physicians could really make a design change. Right now, the only way you can really design a change is by removing the patients from the industrial environment that's grown up around all the things that doctors and nurses invented so long ago. And that is the healthcare system that we now live with. And the cost differential is dramatic. So 80% roughly of the cost of your care if you're having a surgery is purely going to the institution itself. And only about 20% or even 10% is going towards the physician who's performing that surgery. So when you're developing a relationship with that physician, you want to get a solution to your problem. Understand that really that the money that you're spending or that your insurance is bringing to the table is largely now just going straight into the institutions that deliver a broad approach And particularly for smaller surgeries, things like bunion corrections or carpal tunnels or some of the minor vascular procedures, all of these things are pennies on the dollar for the surgeon to just do in the office. But in the hospital, because of this 80%, 90 or 200% principle, you can really blow that cost right out of proportion. And that's incredibly painful for patients who have to bear that cost. And our population is extremely mixed in its insurance opportunities. We've got patients who are generally underinsured with large deductibles. And then the other group of patients are insured. I mean, the government will give us a snapshot and say only 8% of the population are uninsured. Yes, that's 8% right now, but within the last year, that same group, 1 in 5 of them has gone out without insurance for long periods of time. And if you're caught without insurance or with a medical problem, you can't get to that next job to get that insurance. So we really have to find solutions that are affordable for patients to be able to achieve minor solutions. Obviously, the major stuff, well, it will always belong in a hospital. You have a heart attack, you've got a significant bowel cancer. No one's pretending that's an office, but so much of the care that we need is minor, relatively minor surgically correctable stuff.
Oh, and absolutely. So I have a lot of people that are watching this morning, and I want you to think of any surgery that you've gone through, and now you're scratching your head and wondering, well, why did I have to go that route? Why did I have to spend this type of money? Dr. Clarkson, it used to be we would get a job, and the very first question you would have is, do I get insurance? What benefits do I have? I need insurance. Now we're in a switch. I hear everybody now saying, well, insurance is way too expensive. My deductible is through the roof. I keep getting these bills. I can't believe it. Almost feels like nothing was covered. I'd rather just negotiate a cash price. We're hearing that a lot, aren't we?
We are doing that a lot. And that's why I put up the ability for a patient to get through this transparency wall that really seems to be impenetrable. How much does it cost and what are my real options? And I put up a website price engine to just allow them to get an estimation of what it's likely to cost in a hospital. Then there are things called ambulatory surgical centers, which is a very similar concept to a hospital. It's a registered operating room outside of a hospital. And then there's the office, and the office can offer so many of the same surgeries. And I'm able to offer them a price where the surgeon can provide those facilities in the office.
So we both were talking last week while we were getting ready for today's show. We want to make sure we stress this, and we'll probably stress it a couple of times. If you are getting ready for a major surgery, we are in no way telling you to cancel that because you're thinking, well, maybe I don't want to be put under. I don't want to be put to sleep. Maybe I want to cancel that surgery. No way. You're talking about having a major surgery. You have to have that. But as he's mentioning, he's doing hand surgery. I'm looking back now and wondering, why was I put under for a surgery that I had on my foot? And now I'm hoping that other physicians will say, okay, let's take that same, let's go and look at the lead that he's doing and realize that we should be doing the same thing. That is something that you're wanting long term, isn't it? More and more clinics doing this.
It is. So I started this clinic. I left a rather well-paid job in a university to do this. And believe me, it's been a significant startup shock. So, you don't do things in medicine just because they pay you money, right? You go into medicine because you have your dream of doing something for other people, maybe. I don't know exactly what makes you do it. Perhaps it's all just ego. But you go into it with a mission, right? Mm-hmm. And that mission to me took me away from simply accepting the way the healthcare dollars were moving around, which usually was in my interests, towards a more independent approach where I could see patients actually being able to not spend that 80% of care on relatively minor stuff. And I want to see that moving to new practices, so which will be the subject of future podcasts, but I have started a network called Wallant Surgical Solutions, which is a company that's really pushing the boundaries and negotiating with the self-insured companies to help fund surgeons to offer surgery in the office. Because remember, a surgeon's going to get paid a professional fee in the hospital or in the office. Mm-hmm. But the professional fee doesn't pay for all of this. I mean, you have to spend money to run a minor operating room. And so there has to be a cost differential. The self-insured companies have pretty much got the idea. If it's cheaper, let's fund a little bit more for the surgeon to run an office-based surgery than to send everybody to the highest cost sink, which is the hospital. But in fact, it's terribly slow, I will tell you, because cultural change is, an incredible inertia behind it. All of the systems are still, all of the codes, for example, that are built into the system are geared towards these certificated hospital centers and ambulatory surgical centers. And so to interrupt that flow and to actually identify that patients may choose to pay out of pocket, or companies may choose to pay a slightly different fee to the one in the fee schedule, that's slow and expensive. You've really got to get the message out to the patients. And we all know if you want to get the message out to the patients, there's an industry there that charges you hand over fist to get exposure to a large market. And likewise, getting the message across to every single company in the United States is just as slow. So we're working on it. We're chipping away.
Again, Dr. James Clarkson, Heritage Hand Surgery. You have probably example after example, but there was a person that you were mentioning to me that was quoted a ridiculous amount of money of what the surgery was going to cost. Like, what was it, $20,000?
Yes, he was quoted $20,000 because he had broken his finger. And, it was a complicated fracture. One of his tendons had pulled off another bone. So it was going to require surgery. It doesn't matter how difficult it is. And he was offered a surgery for $20,000 by the local system here for one reason only. He had no insurance policy. And this was a gainfully employed young man. I mean, he was a very talented musician. He was working as a computer technologist. He was out of state seeing his girlfriend from Georgia. The guy was absolutely able to pay for a reasonable cost of care, but because he didn't have an insurance policy switched on that month, it was turning on the following month, because he's of course moving between jobs because he's a young guy. Why wouldn't he? Suddenly, bang, he's in trouble. He's got a broken finger, and people are saying, well, here's the book price for the fracture. And the book price can be multiple orders of magnitude greater than something that the insurance would pay. And in my view, the insurance is already paying something that's multiple orders of magnitude greater than the office would need to pay. So I was able to fix it for him in the office for something that he could afford to pay for, and something that profited me, because I'm running a business and I was able to make slightly more money on that care than I would have been paid for by an insurance company.
Exactly. And look, we want the healer, the person who's there taking care of us, to get that money. So for somebody that quoted him 20,000, you were able to do it for two?
Yes, that's right. We were able to do it.
$18,000 difference, folks. That's mind-blowing to me, and that's when you really start to put it into perspective. Again, if you have any questions while we're live, you have any comments, any aha moments about this, please drop them in to Dr. Clarkson while we're on. Any questions you have. He sees people from all over. So yes, he is in Michigan, and for those of you that start to watch us in that area, I want you to reach out to him, because when you think of, oh, hey, I have to have surgery, maybe I don't need to go that route. Again, you can go to his office, heritagehandsurgery.com. That's the website. Also follow, we're going to be bringing more and more to his Facebook page, but there's all the information where you can find Dr. Clarkson. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more on wide awake surgery and what are the complications that could happen when someone is put to sleep and why we're wanting to avoid that. Again, the leader that he is. More on this when we return. We're at Kaufman Outdoors in Sullivan, Missouri with Mark Kaufman. Mark, the e-bikes, they're all the rage. Why?
They're just fun. They're just lots of fun, and they're very versatile. We got them.
The dogs agree.
We got into them for hunting, but there's a way bigger picture, and we realized that. So we came out with the all-new step-through Ridgeline 2.0. We make it in two different models, an all-wheel drive, and then a single rear-wheel hub motor as well.
What do you say to the people that say, wait a minute, aren't you supposed to pedal a bike?
You can pedal, and then if you get tired, you can just give it throttle.
Exactly. You go back and forth. And so, by the way, there's some different frames here. On this one, these are the newer models, right?
This is the newest model. This is the 4th generation of an all-wheel drive that we've done. We actually put a triple tree front end on it so it can only steer so far and not spin all the way around on you. It has stops to it. And then we gave it an air fork in the front that's adjustable. You can adjust the air pressure in it. You can also adjust the dampening on it. We use an O-ring to tell us how much travel we're using so we know that we're at the optimal setting. We have an air shock in the rear. These do have a lockout, so if you're going up a hill just like a normal mountain bicyclist would do, he would lock it out so as he's pedaling, he's not pumping.
Right.
You know.
And look at these tires, by the way. They're massive.
4.8.
Always in life, you can't ever say anything until you try it out. So why don't you do that? I've never been on one, by the way. I have a feeling as soon as I get on it, I'm going to be like, now I know what I've been missing out on.
Yep, absolutely.
He designed these, by the way. Kaufman Outdoors. These are the e-bikes that you know you want. Christmas, by the way, is right around the corner. Kaufman Outdoors in Sullivan, Missouri. Check them out for your own e-bike. That was such a fun shoot. Again, Kaufman Outdoors, we're thrilled to have you part of our show. The Real Monica Adams Show this morning with Dr. James Clarkson on this Medical Monday, again with Heritage Hand Surgery in Michigan. So if you have any comments or questions, drop them in now, or you can do it on replay if you're rushing around trying to get the kiddos back to school. So Dr. Clarkson, give us some, because people are listening going, okay, my whole life I've always been told surgery, I have to be put under. I may have to be put to sleep. This is just what I would expect. But now they're saying, I'm hearing this, and if that's not the case, because I think we've all been scared. I mean, you're sitting there. I remember any surgery I've had, or when I was in the hospital, you're signing away saying, this could go wrong. We could die. We cannot ever wake up. And it's always a scary thing. Again, I'm stressing one more time. If you have a major surgery, that is what has to take place. But how many levels of surgeries are you saying wouldn't need to have that?
Well, let's start with the time that I had a general anesthetic. It was fine. Okay, I had my gallbladder out and it went fine. So I don't hesitate to have an anesthetic when I need one. But the population is aging, right? And as we get older, recovering from an anesthetic does carry slightly unknown consequences. And to be strictly fair, it's anesthesia plus surgery, because we never really deliver anesthesia without surgery, perhaps unless you're Michael Jackson. So we really only provide both at the same time. Now, what we do know is that there is a period after you wake up where you can get something called cognitive post-operative delirium, and that can be a little longer, and it can last a few weeks. Now, that part of the story I don't think is very well captured by our use of medical statistics, because our medical statistics are really very broad. They're how many patients are readmitted, how many patients die. Those sort of broad statistics don't capture the more subtle effects of repeated anesthesia exposure in the elderly population. And our population has never been older, right? I mean, it's simply a fact. And I always think it's fun to say that, because there are certain facts of a modern life that you realize that all the tools that we've got to address human conditions are based on a different population. Another example is no one's ever lost weight at the same rate that we're currently losing weight. Another subject, another whole debate, another thing. But in anesthesia, we have never been this old and received so many surgeries in the history of anesthesia, which, by the way, is an amazing storied history of success. I mean, like before 1900, they were using chloroform, people were being held down. It was a life of agony. So surgeons would approach you from behind your left shoulder, and it was almost like stage left, watch out, the surgeon's coming. I mean, in Britain where I trained, they didn't even call them doctors. They called them Mr. It was a terrifying thing when you're in the hospital and Mr. Brown would come and see you, because you realized you were in a world of hurt. So that was back in the day. And then anesthesia changed everything. It was the end of agony. So absolutely amazing stuff happened when you combined anesthesia with sterile technique. And that sterile technique, which was born around 1900, specifically for the purpose of putting orthopedic plates in, changed everything that we do. And anesthesia today has actually, when you look at the danger in 1900, and then you look at the danger in 1940 and 1960 and so forth, what we're seeing is a decline in the per patient risk. But what we're also seeing is an increase in the risk factors that each patient is bringing to the table because they're getting older and older and older, which almost negates the gains of the safety that we get from improved anesthesia techniques. And boy, are they safe. I mean, that operating room, one of the reasons why you have that extraordinary 80% fee, that 80% extra burden, is because it's an extraordinary orchestra of life suspension and life-saving technology. Your consciousness is suspended. You may be ventilated. You may be paralyzed. You may be just under what they call sedation, which is essentially unconscious sleeping without being given a tube in your throat. And all of these things carry different levels of risk for the patient and different levels of technology and incredible training and incredible people behind it. So don't confuse my avoidance for anesthesia for criticism of it, because thank heavens, I don't want my gallbladder taken out by somebody approaching me from behind my left shoulder. That truly was an amazing thing that they've done. But we need to ask ourselves, we have never been this old before, and we're busy people. We don't all want to take 24 hours out of our schedule to have a minor thing dealt with, which is essentially what they do with an anesthetic. You have to have nothing to eat from the night before. You have to then not drive, not sign forms for 24 hours after a surgery. And it alters your judgment. You really can't trust yourself after a surgery. You just got to go down, sit down at home. Somebody has to be with you at home that night, and somebody has to come with you to the hospital and wait for you while you're having surgery, which means that another person is having to take a day out of work. My wife and I have to tag team it whenever we have a colonoscopy or a minor, some sort of minor thing, because one of us has to take a day off work.
Yep.
And it's extremely complex to do that. When you have families both of whom are employed. Now, when you have surgery in the office, you're on your own steam. You just walk straight in. You drive yourself in. You can drive yourself home again. Some people choose to have a drive home, which is very reasonable because one of their hands has been operated on, but that's up to them. They haven't had their brain altered. Their judgment is sound, and they're legally responsible for themselves.
Yeah, and we showed that last time, by the way, that you've got a great video where people are coming in. You can see them actually going through the process and then walking right out, which is not something that you've probably experienced before. You in your mind are thinking, yes, I have to have surgery. Hey, I need to ask this person to come and help drive me home. That's just something that we've always known. I wanted to get into this. So Dr. Clarkson and I went pretty in depth in our call before we came on this morning, talking about Medicare. Can we go into that? Medicare not prepared to pay the doctors to do this in their office. And the effect of having a Medicare policy. What are your thoughts on that?
So it's a federal plan, and there are such enormous complexities that honestly, Monica, some of this I couldn't possibly know. Right? The instruments of federal governance are so complex that that's part of the problem. But what I can tell you from the end user's perspective is that I have a government I know that's having a crisis paying for healthcare, like every government is. So give them the opportunity to save money, which would require some extra funding for an office environment, and they won't do it. In fact, my Medicare patients, who are my oldest and frailest patients, are given no extra resources to have surgery in the office setting. And very often they'll feel that they have to go to the hospital to have it done.
This is the whole thing about different generations. So for the Medicare side, it is, again, people are believing as they get older that that's going to step in and help them, that, maybe sometimes they're not even lifting a finger to actually pay. So why are we driving people to the main hospital? It was a comment made, and I was hoping to find this clip. And if I do, we'll show it on a future show. But we have a physician, very well respected in our area, that was on our show on a regular basis about 2.5, 3 years ago. And he finally said it in the chair. And I was so happy that he did. And he's like, Monica, everything that you all believe in your mind of our physicians in bed with pharmaceutical companies, what the government, what are they trying to control for us, and what really should that cost be? This is making you sit there and say, yes, I need more doctors to say this. And they are, by the way. They're frustrated. Trust me. Dr. Clarkson and other physicians, they get into this field truly to heal. You mentioned earlier, some might get into it for the ego of being a doctor. Hopefully not. Hopefully you went into it for the right reason. And that you're truly trying to heal, you're trying to help, and you know that you're frustrated with what's happening. Our general practitioners are being rushed with their patients. Here we go, 10, 15 minutes, you got to get out. You all have experienced that, and I'm sure at home you're like, yes. What are your thoughts on all that, the way we look at what's happened over the decades?
I mean, that's the whole thing. When you have a really, really long view, and you can see how Florence Nightingale and William Bowman sat down and figured out how to make a hospital, then you immediately realize we have the agency, but what we're doing, unfortunately, as physicians, is following very often the path of least resistance, which is ultimately almost all that we can do, because resistance is so great either side. As I tried to describe, just attempting to network and communicate to patients and self-insured companies how cheap it can be, or simply the process of setting up your own company as a private practice now, which is becoming increasingly difficult to do, is financially very punitive. So we have to be a bit brave as professionals to realize, well, look, we could continue to get paid by our paymasters in our hospital environments as employee physicians or our university health systems. We could just carry on playing the game. But ultimately, are you sleeping at night? You know, that's really what it comes down to. And my hope is that the tools are increasingly being made available through training in many of the national societies, particularly the American Society for Surgery of the Hand. We've had a very strong tradition of training surgeons to do awake surgery, but trying to move the needle, trying to get more of them to offer it in the office environment, has been a cultural story that really started in 2005. And we're now in 2026. So we're dealing with a 20-year cycle that's sort of really beginning to bite now. There's actually some tenacious reasons to do it, but there's still the financial environment is holding us back. So back to the Medicare question. I mean, let's be clear. I don't think anyone designed the system in a malign way to create the environment that we're in. So we're not in some form of conspiracy here to rob patients or to bully them into things that they don't want. But it's simply that there aren't any incentives from those people who are making decisions to change the way it's happening. And those incentives you would hope can come from the way people vote, the way people look at the way healthcare is being delivered. You can hope that if you provide a viable option and you can show people through example, here it is running in an office and it's safe, the infection rates are great, patient satisfaction rates are great, outcomes are great. Once you've done that and you've kept doing it and you have a number of people doing it, then your federal services should hopefully follow suit. It would be great to think that they could design it. It would be great to think that you could sit down in a room and explain why this works to somebody who could make a decision. But Monica, I don't walk around Washington, D.C. So I'm here in Michigan, in Lansing. I get an opportunity to speak to your audience. I publish papers. I've spoken about this in South by Southwest, the conference, and around the country in a number of different ways, both to the public, to fundraising organizations to fund the development of this technology. So venture capital I've spoken to. So, you know, but you can say it again and again, but ultimately it's a very noisy world out there, as you know, Monica, and it's hard to be heard.
It absolutely is. And I always want to make sure that we address so that you are hearing where you are on the journey of life. So we just talked about Medicare, and then you've got our younger audience. Their kids are just going back to school. They're in their 30s, 40s, maybe 50s, and they're looking at what's to come. But for them right now, we just mentioned getting the job, looking at, oh, what kind of benefit package do I have? For them, though, we're talking about astronomical deductibles that they are looking at and how frustrated they are, right? So for the younger crowd, that's getting in the way for them.
I think we're really beginning to wake up to that, though, because a number of orthopedic groups have begun to publish direct pricing directly on their website. So I'm not totally unique. I've actually done a price comparison engine that is unique because, of course, really the transparency problem is patients firstly don't know their own diagnosis,
Right.
which is, why should they? They didn't go to medical school. They get a whole bunch of misinformation from search engine errors. Now, with the advent of AI, though, I have introduced a self-diagnosis tool onto my website because I do believe that this barrier to healthcare, which is informational, has to fall. And one of them is, what is my diagnosis? And the other one is, how much might it cost if that is my diagnosis? And then the third one is, where can I get it at a reasonable cost that doesn't affect my out-of-pocket expenses as much? Now, let's give you an example here of an ordinary family, right? They have a platinum or a silver plan, not the most expensive plan. So let's call it the silver or the bronze plan in their self-insured company's healthcare policy that covers the family. So there may well be an out-of-pocket deductible in that plan, right? You can either spend more every month and have a very low deductible, or you kind of leave it on the table for when you actually need it. And suddenly you discover with a $5,000 or $10,000 deductible on the table, absolutely everything costs $5,000. I mean, or $10,000. It's like going to a market. You're making the mistake of going to a third world market with $100 bills in your hand, and everything costs $100.
Exactly.
No one's going to break your change.
I thought this was 25. Nope, you have 100, and I have no cash to give
you.
you.
It is $100 because that's what you've got in your hand, and that's the negotiated rate that the insurance company has created for a treatment center to say, look, this carpal tunnel release will cost you $5,600, and that's the cost. And because it's out of pocket, you'll pay that, but we'll charge you later. We'll pay the treatment center. But by the way, by the time it all goes around, you're out of pocket $5,600.
Right.
Now that environment is pernicious, right? Because these patients they've already got jobs they may not necessarily want in order to get this health insurance policy, and they've already paid their contribution every month in order to maintain it, to get whichever level of care they can afford. And now whatever's left, they haven't got the ability to go to an ordinary marketplace and to say, hey, I'd like you to break my change. I don't want to spend my whole deductible on one thing. I would like to get many things done during my, if I'm going to spend $10,000 on my healthcare, I don't want to spend it just once on one thing. And I think that's one of the problems that we're having is that barrier to care is again not deliberate. I don't think anyone sat down in a smoky room to conspire to create it. It's simply that we don't have motivated people to change it in the way these systems are evolved because they're so interdependent. You've got your payers, you've got your hospital systems, you have federal involvement through federal healthcare provision, and all of this crossroads has forgotten that actually surgeons and patients can actually just get along and do it together.
Well, exactly. We always say we're better together, right? And
Right.
we also need leaders in the field. And as Dr. Clarkson said, he's not the only one that's doing things like this, but it is right now more rare. We're hoping at some point we revisit this in 2, 5, 10 years. It becomes here's where the evolution of medicine went. Before we wrap up, I do want to say this because there's a lot of people that are probably listening saying, has the healthcare system failed us? Are we just throwing shade and negativity? No, we are saying something has to change, but why wouldn't the healthcare system want to encourage a procedure that could potentially cost less? Why? I mean, we may even have to continue that into our next time, but that's my biggest question.
Well, so let's just start from a payer perspective, from an insurance company perspective. If you're a business and you insure very small fishing boats in a small fishing village, and one of them goes down, the cost of replacing a small fishing boat isn't very much. So the premium for insuring all of those fishing vessels is rather low. Mm-hmm. So what you would do is you'd replace it with a vast factory ship, an enormously over-embellished ship, that then when that goes down is extremely expensive to replace. And now everybody's insurance has to be very high. So it increases your business to insure a greater business. And there is a prisoner's dilemma between the payers and the hospital systems, the healthcare systems, whereby, You could argue with your healthcare systems and try and starve them out, but then they'll stop seeing your patients. So you can't fight. You can only cooperate. And again, it's a wedge that pushes things towards higher and higher complexity of care in order to structure your billing so that you receive more and more as a healthcare system, which is in the interests, broadly speaking, of the payers, because they're now ensuring much more sophisticated risk. And then try and compare that to that patient who didn't have insurance that week, and he was being told that the book price for a broken finger was $20,000. Now that's the risk they're insuring. So if the book price for a broken finger was $1,500, the book, why would young people would frequently not get insurance?
Exactly. Well, are we
And then
not seeing that?
then who would fund the system? So
Exactly.
the system is dependent on essentially over-insuring people who don't need insurance, so they can pay for those people who do need it and take more than their fair share at other times in their life. Likewise, a hospital is run on its operating rooms. To a large degree, their actual income is derived from orthopedic surgery and also some of the other subspecialist disciplines like cardiac and stroke care. And these are very, very high revenue generators, but also the operating rooms themselves, of which there are 23 in my hospital. And I think my hospital has 600 beds. And I know my British National Health hospitals would have about six operating rooms for that size of a hospital, because they're using these operating rooms to make money. Ultimately, everything gets converted into a complex operation. And then to drive that, you employ your surgeons. And then fait accompli. You have the whole thing baked in. And I'm guilty of that. I mean, I work for a hospital system on a Wednesday, Monica, in order to try and meet the gap, because I'm starting a company now, which is starting a practice is expensive. So I do work for a hospital. I moonlight on a Wednesday. And when I see a patient in the hospital setting, they have to go to the main operating room. That's it.
Well, look,
And
we all know that when we walk in the doors of a hospital, already we hear cha-ching, cha-ching, because
Right.
there's so many levels of people that need to be paid. I am seeing physicians here that know that. Again, same thing. They go in not as often as they did. Then they're looking at having their own clinic. I actually tagged two in the comment section that I know will be very interested in seeing what you're doing. And as I mentioned, I look forward to revisiting this and seeing how it's evolved. So let me ask this, because I know someone who's talking about possibly wanting a hernia surgery,
Hernia
saying,
surgery.
do I have to have the hernia surgery and get put under? That's more
Okay,
major.
all right. So the answer is most of the time you do. There are Canadians in Canada, not America, who have been doing awake hernia surgery.
Wow.
It's for a very simple sliding hernia. It's not my discipline, so I don't do hernias. But for a simple sliding hernia, there are Canadians who will do them awake. And the reason is that, provided it doesn't entrap the bowel in a complicated way, it can actually be done under local anesthetic. Now, these techniques, and this is part of the evolution that has to take place. So we need to begin to identify areas within each discipline which are over-complexified by the use of the operating room and anesthesia. And because they're indistinguishable to most of us, we get trained there. So you come out of the cradle expecting to have anesthesia and muscle paralysis, which is when you paralyze the patient, and all of these things which are taken for granted, but in actual fact may not be needed, because we could develop other techniques that would negate the need for them, but we haven't, because we've only been in the main operating room since 1900.
Right. It's all we knew until we look at this evolution. I have seen and heard in conversations more and more, you just said in Canada, of people that are traveling to have surgery or traveling to see other physicians in other countries because this is happening. And then we always feel like the United States is a couple of years behind. Hopefully that's not the case. And we're hearing more and more of this. Again, we're going to wrap up, but we have the continuation. We've got so much more to talk about with Dr. Clarkson. And again, if you didn't get a chance, maybe you're listening as you're driving the the kiddos to school, or you're going to catch this later and you're doing a little hashtag replay, don't feel like you can't ask your questions or make your comments afterwards. We'll make sure that Dr. Clarkson sees them. Again, here's all the information of where you can find Heritage Hand and Plastic Surgery. The website is heritagehandsurgery.com, and you can follow him also on Facebook, where he is interactive as well. Let me see real quick. I thought I saw, why do some patients have to have a referral to go to a specialist doctor? Mine does something my primary won't give me.
So some of the insurance policies will require it. So the managed care organizations always require it. And then some specialty clinics also require a filter. They want I could introduce that as a filter if I wanted to, simply so that I only receive patients who are likely to need surgery, which I think is personally, I think is a bit lazy. I'd rather filter them myself rather than have them have difficulty seeing me. But it improves the conversion rate. If you're purely business-minded, the conversion rate to surgery is improved if the patients are referred with a specific condition.
Okay. Thank you again. Always love our conversations. Looking forward to having you on in September.
Great. Nice to talk to you, Monica.
All right, everybody, Dr. James Clarkson again. You can go back to the first interview on our YouTube channel if you missed that, and any questions that you have carrying forward. Don't go anywhere. We'll tell you what's coming up tomorrow, and we've got something exciting for all of you that want to switch your homes or your offices from candles, and what other options do you have that are safe for you and safe for your pets? We'll talk about that when we return.
Most places you walk into, you look around, you nod, not here. You could try anything.
Woo! Only 3 minutes in here, I'm already gassed. Check this bad boy out. It's a swim spa. Let's go. This is called the Sweaty Goat. This is where I get my demons out. Whether it's a hot tub, a swim spa, a sauna, or a cold tub, you come in here and you could try it and you pick what you want. That's Spas and More STL. And tell them Cam sent you.
And for all my friends that love hockey, that is former St. Louis Blues player Cam Jansen with his little squeaky toy at the end. Thank you to Spas and More for being a part of our show. We'll have them coming up on a Wellness Wednesday very soon. Speaking of wellness, I have in my hand here, this is a diffuser from Aura House. Now, this might be the first time you're hearing me talk about them. I have one in my home, and I have one here in our office. It's actually for our guests that come walking in the door. The very first thing we've always heard them say is, Monica, your studio smells amazing. And I love that. I mean, I want it to not only be a place where you feel comfortable coming in and enjoying our set and being able to say whatever you want, and maybe if it's a tough topic that you feel warm and you feel heard, but it's also the comments that are made about how amazing it smells. First of all, it's Sephora clean. It is PETA certified. They have no parabens. The coverage is up to about 650 square feet. So I have it, as you saw there, in my great room. So my clients all came over on Saturday and I was like, what do you think? I switched out the scent. First, I had Coast. I switched out to Collins. I've been told by my clients so far that they really like Coast, but I'm going to tell you what, yesterday I switched it to Manifest, which smells unbelievable. It's really those happy signature hotel inspired scents. So if you want something that's bright and fresh and travel inspired, then you might like Coast or Dubai or Collins. They have several different scents to choose from. I like, though, that there are no ingredients known to be toxic to dogs and cats. You know, I have 3 babies at home. It's 100% pet safe and vet approved. And for many people are wanting to switch out candles. No flame, no soot, no wax mess, no worrying about the pets or the kids near an open flame. This is Aura House. And as you are seeing on the screen, you can go to the Shopify link. I'm actually going to drop it in for you on the comment section to make it really easy. But when you do so, I want you to save money. So you type in after you've found what you would like. And I like the more of the like cream color, which is what we have here, but there's a black one I saw as well. Real Monica 10. That is the link that you drop in. So you can go to our house and put in that code, or I'll just make it really easy for you and we'll drop it into the comment section. But this is what it looks like, and it's this simple. You literally take it off. I've got the scent inside here. We have Dubai, and then it's magnetic, so it just pops right back on. You can set it onto, you plug it in, and then you can set it yourself just by clicking the intensity, or you can schedule it, which is what I do at home, on an app to make it easy. And I have it, so as soon as I'm waking up in the morning, I'm like, oh, it's already on, and the entire great room is just, I don't smell dogs anymore. I smell what smells like a luxury resort, or when we come back from Cabo, I always want to carry that scent back. So Aura House, we're thrilled to have you as part of the Real Monica Adams Show. All right, folks, tomorrow she's back. Bridget Childress from Childress Legal Nurse Consulting. She is our guest on a Testament Tuesday. She really loves the faith-based component of what we have incorporated into the show. And as soon as we said we wanted to do Testament Tuesday, she said, I'm on board. I want to tell my stories. Coming up on a Wellness Wednesday, I mentioned spas and more. So they, as you know, put a hot tub at our house. Not only do they have hot tubs, a lot of people are really interested in the contrast therapy of a cold plunge and the hot tub. They also like the sauna aspect, or if they don't want to do a pool, they might want to do a swim spa. So I've been enjoying this in my own backyard. I'm excited for how many of you have told me that you've reached out to Spas and More and that you are pulling the trigger yourself. In fact, I want to thank EcoPower. They did the electric for us, and they said that their family members saw our color and ended up buying the exact same one. So they are super excited to get their own. My dear friend Michelle is supposed to have hers delivered this week. In fact, I think it's on the docket for today. I'm excited for that. If all plays out, then we're going to have her join us on Wednesday, as well as our friends over at Exist Stretch. And they were really, really busy over the last week. I saw them out in South St. Louis at the Grub and Groove. They also were at another event in South St. Louis doing a ton of stretching. Pretty cool, right? For those of you that get on the table at Exist Stretch, whether it's inside or at an event, that's where the game changes. Finally, you understand what we've all been talking about of how different it is when you feel the body moving the way it's supposed to. So thank you to Trisha. Thank you to Claire, who we just had on. But also I had a bunch of clients on Saturday say that they've been getting in to see Tim, and Tim's got that massage background, as well as Justin. So our friends over at Exist Stretch, whether it's the one in the St. Louis Hills area or it's the one that's in Arnold, you can go to either existstretch.com and then follow them on social media as well at Exist Stretch. But as I mentioned, if you haven't been on the table like many of us have, you're not going to know what we're talking about. Get in, get your first stretch absolutely free, and then they have packages. And it's actually only, another week or so that they have that 5 for $230 through Labor Day. You can take advantage of that. So just some of our many sponsors that have joined us, and we welcome Aura House and we welcome Dr. James Clarkson, two of our newest as we're heading into September. I also want to give a shout out to R.A. Ginner. So they guys were here. There were like 3 of them here at Adventure Unknown, which is the business club associated with our studios. And the guys were here doing their work. And I was speaking with the owner, one of the owners, Jessica, over at R.A. Ginner. And she's like, hey, Monica, our guys are actually there at your building doing some incredible work. So if you don't know, and you've never taken a tour of Adventure Unknown, come on over. We'd love to show you it. There's over 100 members that are loving how small businesses lift up small businesses. And these guys are helping with the expansion. This is going to be a new seminar room. There's a new cool VIP lounge that's coming. And for guys and girls that love to golf, there's a golf simulator coming as well. They're getting us ready for that. R.A. Ginner, in business for over 100 years. Check them out online, ginnerplumbing.com. And to all of you, thank you again for letting me know about these incredible businesses, because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't know. So I give you $100 if a new sponsor comes on or they book us for a Mobile Monica, which is coming up, by the way. We have one in October, a fall festival with our friends over at Garden View. Can't wait for that. We also are going to be going at the end of October to the Vault, which is in the Brentwood, Richmond Heights area, for another fashion transformation. And coming up in November during our 1,000 show celebration, we are heading to Kimmswick. I'm excited. If you haven't heard the news of that, we're going to show all the area of Kimmswick, one of the most adorable towns for food and for shopping and just for community. So these are exciting things to come, all thanks to you. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in on another Real Monica Adams Medical Monday. Tomorrow, Testament Tuesday again with Bridget Childress. From now till then, I had just over the weekend talking to a lady. She walked in the door while I was getting my hair cut, and I looked at her and I said, "You have the best energy." And she had the biggest smile on her face, and she's like, "You just made my day." And I said, that is what it's all about. Give a stranger a compliment and watch how you change their life. That's the greatest thing we can do. Be kind, folks. See you tomorrow. God bless.
The Real Monica Adams Show is brought to you by Kaufman Outdoors and The Porch in Wildwood.